Yeah, you're right. The worst song on here was Okay. And welcome back to another episode of Exposing Ourselves. I'm Travis Ritchie, and this is episode 21. Ooh, old enough to drink. This is the show where we expose each other to new things. Matt, a big music fan, will assign me one of his favorite albums or playlists to listen to each week, and I, a movie buff, will give him one of my favorite films, and we come together on this podcast to discuss it all. And with me, as always, is my good friend,
Matt Runquist. Hey, Travis. This week, I watched the movie Joker, and you listened to my personal music project, Panko Stankhole.
I wondered if you were actually going to claim it as yours this early in the pod. I mean, we know, but like for the purposes of suspense, if we were going to just say, you listened to Panko Stankhole's debut album, Outhouse, or whatever.
Debut album. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it. I'm really glad that you were willing to do that. This is kind of a very special episode, even though it's not a very special episode, but yeah, we'll get into it at some point.
So I was thinking, because this is our 21st podcast, maybe we should have had some sort of spirits to imbibe in, but then I remembered I don't imbibe in spirits, so
I am also teetotal right now, so yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, I have not even coffee today. I have water.
I could go grab a kombucha, which has a very, very low alcohol content, but would count.
Yeah. All right. Good. Well, I mean, we'll pretend that that's what you did.
All right.
And that you're enjoying your kombucha right now, and I am enjoying, I don't know, a hard lemonade.
Ooh, Travis's hard lemonade.
Yeah, that's right. So how was we have not spoken in quite some time. It feels like so long after getting used to hearing your dulcet tones week after week.
Yeah, it has been quite a while. I looked at our FaceTime and it's been almost a month. So I was on vacation in the wilds of Kentucky, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Had a wonderful time. Went camping. We have a tent camper, like the little pop-up type camper. We take all four dogs with us. It's 200 and let's see, 160. It's 270 pounds of dog approximately.
Wow.
In one tiny little pop-up camper with the two of us. I feel like we look like in the morning when I open the door, I feel like it's a clown car where just more and more giant dogs pop out of it, but it's a really good time.
Piling out of it. Yeah. This sounds great.
I will say North Carolina. I'm not going to get into the details of the trip because people come here to hear about music and movies, but North Carolina, the mountains of North Carolina are unreal, beautiful, a wonderful, wonderful place to spend some time hiking, checking out nature, learning a little bit about the history of the country. I loved it. I loved the whole trip, but North Carolina was definitely the highlight for me.
Oh, Matt, that's so awesome. It really sounds great. You did post a couple of great pictures, and I really love seeing not only how much fun you were having, but also the puppies themselves.
Yeah.
There's one picture of everybody at a stream, and you have a low angle, and when I saw the thumbnail, I thought it was a horse.
Oh, yeah.
Like drinking from the stream, and that you were kind of behind it. Because also you were... The forced perspective was you were behind it, so the dog looked much bigger.
Yeah.
And but it looked like a lot of fun.
And greyhounds do have a very similar silhouette to horses, just smaller. So yeah, they're little thoroughbreds. Yeah.
Well, anything else?
Nothing more.
Full...
Yeah, I mean, nothing more for me. Amy's surgery is scheduled, so that's exciting for us, and so we'll have plenty of time to tape podcasts in a couple of weeks.
Good.
But
right.
I hear there is also big news on your end of the country. What is it, Travis?
Yeah, my big news is I became a daddy again. I adopted a puppy, a fur baby daddy.
I thought you were going to talk about the writer's strike. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well,
no,
the two are not. The two are not unrelated.
Oh,
actually.
Okay. Do tell.
Because of the writer's strike, I am not working at the moment. My show is dark, and I have been looking to adopt a dog for several months since I learned about the time we started this podcast that I wasn't going back to Japan. I said, okay, it's time, and I think I probably mentioned it on this show.
You have indeed.
I want to adopt, and but I've also been very picky. I knew what I wanted. I wanted a specific thing in the dog that I wanted, a certain size. I wanted a girl. I wanted a puppy, and I went about 2.5 weeks ago to the East Valley Animal Shelter here in L.A. in the San Fernando Valley.
Nice shout
and
out.
I met. I met this one dog who was gorgeous and wonderful and perfect, but she was like 4 months old, and they were like, and they told me her weight, and I did there's a little online calculator you can do, and it's like, this dog will be 89 pounds, and I was like, oh no, that's too big. And then they brought this dog out whose name was Girly at the time, and she was also perfect and just a wonderful little dog, a little older, and so wasn't going to grow much more.
Okay.
And the calculator has her growing to about 43 pounds, give or take,
Nice.
which is almost the same size as Dot was for most of her life. And and she's beautiful. She looked very dark, like almost black fur with like some white highlights on her chest and paws. And but then when we got her out into the sun, I saw that her fur was actually very dark brown.
Yeah,
and had
very
like
common.
brown highlights.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, oh, chocolate names, Godiva, Lindor truffle, stuff like that, cocoa. And then so I was like, oh, cocoa's nice because it's got hard consonants, and it's good for a dog name to have a consonant and a.
I've known a few Cocos in my day.
Yeah, and then I was showing a picture of her to one of my ex-boyfriends, and he's like, "Oh, she is a Coco. She's got marshmallow feet." And I was like, "Oh, just like a hot cocoa. Yep, that's it." And so that's it. And so she's been with me for about 2.5 weeks now. And today we went on our first wisdom tree hike, which is one of my
Nice.
favorite places in LA. And
Yeah.
she did great. She is
Awesome.
currently passed out on the bed behind me, and so
Not
yeah.
the first time you've said that.
Yeah, exactly. First time for a dog on this bed. So anyway, no, it's
That's
lovely.
exciting.
I am very happy. I think that it's very good for me emotionally, and it's long overdue for me to have a little puppy again.
Yeah, dogs are the best people for sure.
Yeah. So that is pretty much the only other big thing that's going on because of work being gone and dead at the moment. I think the strike is going to go on for a couple more months. And what's interesting is that the actors and directors guilds are also about to start negotiations and have already asked for strike authorization votes from their members as a way to bargain, I guess, to go to the table and say, we've already been authorized to go to strike if we don't get what we need.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Well,
It's
I'm
an
sure you
exciting
know this
time.
already, Travis, but I'm a big supporter of organized labor. I wish all three unions the absolute best. I hope you guys get all that you want. I hope your shows go into super duper production. I hope they hire you as a writer, an actor, a director, all. Because you're a multi-talented threat, and I hope it all
Thank you.
goes awesome for you.
Me too. It's I think it will. It can't not. As far as, I mean, something's got to give, and this is an existential moment for the industry. So I hope everything works out. Speaking of movies and other stuff,
Yeah,
I guess music too, but I'd like to talk about our. You want to delve into the meat of the episode?
yeah. Let's do it. Let's get in there.
I mean, that was a pretty short intro, but man, we've got a lot to talk about.
We sure do.
Let's start with the movie since we're talking about the industry in such a way.
Yeah.
And oh man, I am. This movie interests me in a way that surprised me, and I will say. So I gave you the movie Joker from 2019 to watch, starring Joaquin Phoenix and directed by Todd Phillips. And when this movie was coming out, I had already such low expectations for DC movies that I really didn't expect anything good from this, because they had kind of, to that point, had one good movie recently with Wonder Woman. And this was not even part of that world. It was kind of like its own thing, and the trailer didn't really look good to me. It was weirdly like stylized, and like it seemed so it seemed almost too artistic for its own good.
Yeah,
just from the trailer.
to that point, I would say I can't imagine trying to cut a meaningful trailer for this movie that gets butts in the seats.
Yeah.
Right?
Fair, exactly. So, but what happened was that summer, this was the summer before I moved to Japan, and I was kind of half dating this guy for a little bit, and we were like, let's go to a movie. And this happened to be exploding in theaters at that point, where like everybody was seeing it. And I didn't want to see it, but we looked at each other and we're like, I mean, should we just see it? And that kind of thing. And we went, and I will say I was blown away. My mind was blown by this movie. Not only the actual plot and story and filming and all of that went into it, which I also think is pretty spectacular, but I walked out from an actor's point of view looking at Joaquin Phoenix, who I normally don't like, actually. Mm-hmm. I'm not a fan. And I said, this is the best performance I've seen this century so far. Okay. It was incredible to me. And the movie went on to make like $1 billion, and which is insane. And everybody initially was like, oh no, this is just a one-off. We don't want to make a sequel. Like, Joaquin Phoenix did not sign a 3-picture deal that is normal in superhero movies, but now they are making a sequel. So I think that's fairly interesting. Yeah. So that being said, I think that's all we need to do, except for me to say that, when you ever go to a movie and then when the credits start rolling, you pull out your phone and look up IMDb to check out some details about the movie. I did that, and I was like, oh, what did I just watch? And I looked it up, and I clicked on the director, and I was like, the director of The Hangover did this? That also just, my mind melted at that piece of knowledge. And I've never seen Hangover, but it just...
Oh, really?
I couldn't believe, believe that guy also did this.
Well, I assign you the first Hangover movie, first of all, because it's really good. Yeah, it's really enjoyable.
Well, we got episode 30 coming up.
Well, I've seen The Hangover, so unfortunately, you're just going to have to watch it on your own time. So what you're saying is you were ambivalent about Joker. You're kind of comesy-cozy on it.
I was now after I've seen it. So no. After I walked out of it, I loved it, and I was like, okay, he's winning Best Actor, no doubt about it, and this movie will probably be nominated for an Oscar as well. And I didn't watch it again for a few years because that feeling that I had after the first viewing was so special. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to risk the movie not living up to that memory. Okay. Do you know?
Yeah.
So but then I did watch it again and still loved it. And I just watched it a third time for this, to prepare for this episode. And I still think it's kind of amazing. So.
Okay. Nice. Very good.
What did you think, Matt?
Well, that there was a little kernel of truth in that joke, which is that I'm super duper ambivalent about this movie. As a filmmaking achievement, it's fantastic, right? An interesting take on a character that we all thought we knew, an interesting reinvention, I guess I would say, of a character that we all thought we knew, and a character that has had some pretty definitive takes before, right? Like, I mean, the Jack Nicholson Joker, the Heath Ledger Joker, even the Cesar Romero Joker, right?
Yeah. Except what we never have gotten before is a real origin story. Like even Jack Nicholson's,
he fell into it.
Falling in a vat of acid.
Yeah, you fall into a vat of acid. You get
But it's not. That's not an origin. That's a cause. That's a cause and effect type of. That's a moment. But this one, I feel like you get way more like meat to his character.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super familiar with all of the Batman oeuvre. Has Joker ever gotten a real, like, definitive canon origin story?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not really. I mean, it's always been part of his appeal, I think, has always been that he has been a mystery, this agent of chaos, from no particular source, like just as a balance to Batman.
Yeah.
Here's this opposite, this person, and we don't really know why he's so crazy. Like, he is very crazy in every iteration, in the comic books, in the movies, in the video games.
Yeah, there's times when he can come off almost as like a Loki figure, like mythological Loki figure, not Marvel universe Loki figure. And there's
Not the same thing.
I would say the MCU Loki is a pretty far reach from like Norse mythology.
Okay, sure. Yeah, yeah, he's a softer version, but he still calls himself the Agent of Chaos, or the trickster god.
Yeah, like they say all those names, but I mean, just like Thor in the MCU is a long, long way from any sort of actual Thor figure in mythology. Same
I get what you're saying.
And so, anyways, what I was saying though is that Joker has a bit of the trickster about him. Yes, his lack of a backstory is almost part of the character historically, right? Like, why is this guy doing this? Nobody really knows. Other than he was driven insane by some sort of physical event or something, I guess is what you would say for the Jack Nicholson character.
Right. Yep.
So I guess what I want to get across here is like, it's a beautiful movie. It's well paced. It has a viewpoint, right? It sticks with Joaquin Phoenix for the whole thing, right? Nothing, like, everything is told from his perspective,
Yeah.
And that's an interesting choice, and I think you have to make that choice if you want to tell this story in a sympathetic way, right? Because if you tell this story from the perspective of other people in it, boy, oh boy, do you like, this is sympathetic to the Joker, right? And I think the big read that you can have on this movie is that it takes this person who is a violent and dangerous person who is unpredictable and doesn't really have an agenda, and like grafts an agenda and a like a meaning onto what he's doing. That I don't know if we need that, like, as a society, right? As a movie watching public, I don't know if we need to like take this person who's like a wild card that will just murder a person out of the blue.
But here I think is where one of the reasons I like this movie is because if you look at, for example, the difference between Jack Nicholson's Joker, who is a psychopath who gains crazy, right? Mm-hmm. He was already a murderer and he gains crazy. Yeah. In this one, Arthur, Joaquin's character, is not a killer. He's got some mental issues, but he has the violence kind of layered on top of that.
Yeah.
After, like, he's pushed to violence, which I think is a really interesting twist on this guy. And ultimately, kind of, it works as a cautionary tale for society at large.
See, and that I think is a really generous take. And I would like to say that this feels like a cautionary tale, right? That it feels like a warning, right? But there are times, and I realize this is like kind of Tipper Gore of me, but I feel like it glorifies the Joker character, and like come on now.
I know, and it's a common
right
thread in response to this movie.
There's a
I disagree
part of society that takes these characters that are like sort of toxic stereotypes. I'm thinking of like Rick and Morty, or Bateman from American Psycho, or whatever, Psycho, yeah. Or even Scarface, right? Like going back to our generation, right? And like grafts this sort of like positivity or protagonist story onto them, when the story is that or Tyler Durden from Fight Club, right? If you don't realize that Fight Club is a satire, you think that Tyler Durden is just like a cool guy who's like Brad Pitt cool. I'm gonna I want to be like him because he's like fights and he's cool and he's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth and whatever, right?
Yeah.
And like there's a lot of people that have missed the point of a lot of these movies. And I don't, if Joker is making that point, that's all very well and good, but I think it is really, really easy to miss that and just be like, yeah, look at this guy who is like achieving his goals through violence, you know?
Okay, so I gotta push on that just a little bit, because here, when you lay the I guess the label of glorifying violence on something, I think you have to ask yourself, okay, if it's glorifying violence, then it should stand to reason that people want to be him, right? In order to do the things that he's doing. Mm-hmm. Just like, you know, Tyler Durden, like you said with Tyler Durden, you know, sure. I want to be him because I want to just, you know, be anarchist. I don't think that anybody would trade their lives for this guy's life.
In real life. True.
Yeah.
Right? But throughout the movie, one of the themes of the movie, or not themes of the movie, but one of the images of the movie is all these people wearing masks. Way to steal imagery from V for Vendetta, by the way. But like wearing these clown masks, you know.
But V for Vendetta stole it from, you know, whatever else, the French Revolution, I suppose. I don't know. But the you know, when you're talking about society getting to a breaking point where we're building off of the backs of the poor and downtrodden without offering them help in return, eventually something's going to break. And I think that's what this is. And everybody, like, we look for symbols and for things to rally behind. You know, when this was a year before the George Floyd murder, mm-hmm. and look at what that sparked worldwide. Protests and most of them were not violent like these were in the movie, but I think the energy, the crackling of desperation is there in the world, and I think it really is.
Yeah, and I think that's a really valid point. And but see, I guess the thing that I have about this is that it doesn't engage with that in a really realistic way, and. You know, but yes, right? Like, to the extent that those points are made about, you know, having your boot on the backs of the poor and putting people in a situation where they feel like they have no options. I'm absolutely, I understand those points. I agree with those points and so forth. I don't know that this movie earns that story, right? And I think it's probably because it's told so relentlessly from his perspective, and he doesn't have a political agenda. He's not dialed into all of those things. So throughout this movie, that's all told through TV broadcast and radio broadcast or newspaper headlines, right? And one of the, you know, like, so sticking with Arthur's perspective throughout the movie gets you like a really deep connection with the character, and like there are big pros to that, but the big con is that there is this big overarching story that you want to tell about society reaching a breaking point, and that is all told at an angle, right? Through sort of like less effective means. And I didn't feel like a lot of that stuff was earned, you know? Also, okay. I'm not a huge fan. I mean, okay, billionaires shouldn't exist, right? I'm not a huge fan of just throwing Bruce Wayne's dad character under the bus in a way that like has never been done before, right? Like Thomas Wayne has never been a bad guy in any iteration of the Batman universe, right?
It's true. He's always been kind of revered, and like he was.
Yeah, and like, you know, to the extent that this is pushing back against the idea of, hey, the billionaire is great. He comes and he sprinkles money around for us, you know, like, well, that's good. True. But, you know, so I'm not saying that that's not, that doesn't ring true, but like it does not, it's not contiguous with the rest of the mythology for sure.
No, but I do think that the history of billionaires in our society and billionaires in comic books has been has differed. Like back when Bruce Wayne was a billionaire, there were only a couple of billionaires in the world, and it seemed like they could be people who would actually use their money to help the poor and do things. Nowadays, we know better. Like, there are a couple of billionaires who are benevolent, but most of them are greedy sons of bitches, and society would be better without them. So, like...
Well, and to the extent that they're benevolent, they're just benevolent in like comparison to the other billionaires, right? They're not
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that that's where this story's perspective comes from, and in that way, it's as a reflection of a more modern society. I really appreciated it.
So one of the things that this movie does a lot is sort of it co-ops a lot of the imagery of the Occupy movement. You know, it co-ops a lot of imagery from the left in service of a message that is like sort of hyper violent, right? And is not, at the very least, it does not comport with my experience of being a leftist person hanging out in leftist spaces. And it feels a little bit like how, you know, and I'm not saying... I hate to rule 34 the conversation here, but like, you know how the National Socialists adopted the name National Socialist, right? Nazi, right? But they were the furthest thing from socialists, right? And I don't love taking sort of leftist imagery and themes and slogans and sort of recruiting them into this like hyper violent, you know, not fascist imagery, but Batman is a vigilante style movement, right? It's funny. It's kind of that is kind of interesting that it's like it sets Joker up as just a vigilante like Batman is, just from the other.
Does. They use the word vigilante at one point that was, I thought, very pointed.
Yeah. I got to admit, there was a point in this movie when I'm like, I would be so much more on board with what this is trying to do if he hadn't chased the third kid down and shot him in the back. You know what I mean? When he kills the kids on the subway, if he had just shot those first two in the moment while they were actively attacking him, and then didn't like go out there and hunt down the third kid, I would have had a very, very different reaction to this, I think.
I mean, he also smothered his mom, so would you have?
Well, I mean, like, but
I think this is the point where he gets to a breaking point, and then breaks.
Yeah,
and I think that
I would just say
go
like,
back and
yeah, that's fair.
We're talking about a character that in the comics does kill people, you know, without, and so we're getting him to that point, you know, and I thought it did it I just thought it did it successfully of the question of why when it came to the Joker, like why does he do the things we've seen him do in comic books? Like it just there's never a rhyme or reason to his chaos, and I like that here they made an attempt to at least explain that in a fairly grounded way.
All right, cool. That's cool. Okay, so I think I've made the observations that I want to make. I debated whether I was going to convey this, but I'm going to throw it in there. So my wife said something last night because she also watched the movie with me, and it does give me just like this is part of why this niggles at me. She said, I feel like I just attended a public execution, right? And not in a literal way, but like in an entertainment, like when people used to go to executions as entertainment. This felt like sort of violence, you know, and mob emotion as entertainment to her.
Interesting.
And I don't know that I would necessarily like 100% agree with that, but I think it gets at why I struggled with the message of this movie.
I can absolutely see where that perspective comes from, especially from the graphic nature of the violent. I wouldn't call this hyper violent in the
Yeah.
way that some movies are, but I do think the very specific violence that you see is graphic, and because of that, it has a very visceral feeling to it. Now, for me, although I understand that perspective, I think that I see it much more from the point of view that it's a warning. It's a and he even says it. He says that if you this is the thing, you take a guy like me, and this is the things you do to him. What do you expect?
Yeah.
And I think that's the theme of the movie right there, and I think it gets it pretty well. What did you think of Joaquin's performance?
Oh, it was fantastic. It really was. I mean, did I love every single choice that was made? No, but it was different and good in a very, very interesting way, right?
Yeah, I've never seen anything quite like it.
His motion. So it's funny because one of the things that Joker does as he sort of becomes himself is starts dancing in various situations, almost like it's expressing some internal, resolution or something. And his movement, it's clear that he studied very carefully, and I don't know if there's an actual choreographer that he worked with or if it was just like interpretive dance from Joaquin Phoenix. I probably should have looked that up because it was his movement in those sequences was very, very impressive to me, and I did really love that, the way he would move his hands. It reminded me of like really high level dance, like Vogue or modern dance that's really about making shapes with your body and expressing emotion. So
Yeah.
that was really, really good.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm generally not a fan of such things, but I agree that the way he executed his body, and he lost something like 50-some pounds for this role, which is just crazy. Other than The Machinist with Christian Bale, I've never seen anything quite like it. Yeah, this is I think just performance-wise, the best performance from any Joker I've seen. And
Really?
and as I said, and I still think it's one of the best acting performances I've seen this century so far, if not longer. Like it just blew me away seeing the choices and the absolute commitment to the character. It was extraordinary to me. Yeah, and as I said, I'm not a big fan of Joaquin Phoenix. Like I haven't liked him in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Like whether it's his method style of acting or what, I've not been a big fan. But man, this makes me feel inferior as an actor for sure.
Well, I mean, what's funny about Joaquin Phoenix? I haven't historically had a huge issue with him, positive or negative. But I will say he's one of those guys who looks like several other actors. I'm thinking specifically of Jonathan Rhys-Davies, but there's a few actors who all sort of look kind of similar, and it's distracting to me because every time I see one of them, I'm like, wait, which one is this now? Is that?
Fair.
Oh,
yeah.
No, it's not. Oh, I think that's River Phoenix's Nope, that's not. And and it just throws me out of the moment for a depressingly long amount of time. Oh, you know what? I was going to make a comment about his age and Bruce Wayne's age, but I'm not going to do that because it's not important. No,
that is my one.
It's not important.
That's my one niggle about this is that while I love the fact that they tied the protests that erupt around him into Bruce Wayne's origin story, Batman's origin story. I love that, but the timing is weird.
Yeah,
like,
the timing is.
It does. It is weird that Joker
work.
is 30 years older than, or I mean, not 30, but 20 years older than Batman.
Well, Joaquin Phoenix was 44 when this movie was released.
but I think the character was 30 or something like that.
Yeah, which
They said something.
Yeah, I mean, he looks 50. So, but that's like, I understand he's a victim of abuse who's living in poverty. It makes
You live
sense.
a hard
for,
life, you look a lot older.
It makes sense for him to look older than his age. But yeah,
Bruce Wayne's character was actually 25, but he looked 10. So
all of the casting was really, really good. She did a great job, but there was none of the casting that I was unhappy with.
I actually didn't love Thomas Wayne, but yeah, whatever. It was all right.
That's fair.
He's kind of a nothing character.
Yeah. Which is why I feel like they did him dirty, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's fair. So why don't you give it a rating?
I think you're going to be a little disappointed in this, but I cannot get over. I think as a movie, really, really good, but again, the choice of story and all the things that I don't like about it, I'm gonna go with a 6.
Okay, that's not bad. I was thinking about it a lot today, and having rewatched it recently, and I just was I'm gonna give it a 10.
Really,
this is a perfect. It's because of my initial reaction. And then the second time I watched it, it held up. And now the third time I watched it again, it held up still. And I am just so impressed I'm so impressed by this movie's ability to do such an in-depth character study on a character we kind of already know in the zeitgeist, in the popular culture, and to reinvent him while staying within the means of what we already know him to be.
Sure.
is very impressive to me. Like, for instance, Jared Leto's version of the Joker is a reinvention, but kind of breaks the character a bit.
Okay.
And this doesn't do that. This builds on the kind of trajectory and the evolution that he's been on since Cesar Romero to Jack Nicholson to Heath Ledger to Mark Hamill to actually Mark Hamill before Heath Ledger, but then Heath Ledger and now Joaquin Phoenix. And I think it's pretty good. So yeah, 10 for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yep. So, all right. Well,
so we're done now, huh? Okay, great.
Cool. We're done. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
It's been nice talking to you. Matt, thanks for exposing yourself to
Wait a minute.
we have some music to talk about.
We do have some. Would we call it music?
I call it musics for a very particular reason.
Oh, okay. Well, oh no, you know what? I'm gonna explain. So
you introduced this
to
album.
Everyone who does not know, I have a musical project that I've been working on since the beginning of the year. It's called Panko Stankhole, which is a deliberately bad name. I know it's a bad name for a band. You don't have to tell me, although you're certainly welcome, because that's engagement and we love engagement. But anyways, I've been writing, recording, producing one song a week from January 1st up until I left for my vacation. And I released the first 13 songs that I had written as an album in mid-April. They are a variety of genres, which I believe is what Travis is referring to as musics. And part of the challenge was I wanted to get better at songwriting, or if not get better at songwriting, just do more songwriting. I really enjoy it, and so this is my stab at figuring out what I like to write. And so it's a little all over the place at times, but I feel like, especially when you get to the end, you realize, oh, like half of that was all kind of the same kind of music. So I think that's the kind of music I like.
Okay. It did become clear to me what kind of music that you like. Like, your style does shine through despite your best efforts. And so what I'd like to ask is, what are you, before I get into it, and what are you particularly proud of from this album?
Well, one, I'm particularly proud of the fact that I made it, right? A song a week is an insanely fast schedule, and the quality of this is largely there. I don't think there's any tracks that stand out as like, wow, did he phone it in that week, right? There were certainly times when I wanted to phone it in, but I don't think I ever took a week where I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna put this piece of junk out there, and that's just gonna be out there. Like, it is really tempting to just be like, I'm gonna put something out for the sake of putting it out, and I didn't do that, and so I'm very proud of that. Also, if you are going to embark on a project like this, I highly recommend you marry someone who is an insanely good singer and also a compelling lyricist.
Yeah, that's going to be something I will talk about for sure. So I will say, Matt, that I am thoroughly impressed by the existence of this album.
Yeah.
I think that you are absolutely right that creating a thing is harder than people think. And being a creator myself, I know, or at least I can imagine the work that went into creating something or 13 somethings that are as good as they are for the time, the constraints that you had going into it. So one of the things that I was curious about listening to this is I really wanted to know because you said you had prompts for every week, right?
Yeah. I did have prompts, although I found as I went on that I started dropping, like I started being like, you know what, I'm gonna throw that prompt away, I want to do X. So like there's a song on here that's a blues song, right? And that is very clearly like the prompt for this week was blues, right? And write a blues song, and I did that. But as I got further along, I was like, you know what, I don't feel like doing the writing a harmonica song or whatever, right? And so I'm just gonna send it. Like for instance, one of my prompts was piano, and the previous week I had made like a really nice little piano line and incorporated it into my song, and I was like, I can't, it was super hard. It was like, I don't play piano, right?
Yeah.
So it was really difficult. And I'm like, and now you're asking me to do it again the next week? No, I can't do that. And so I just threw it on the trash heap. But you're right. I think it would have been nice for people to get to see what the prompts were, for sure.
Yeah. So I think that there are a couple things that I really like about this album. First off, most of the songs, I think maybe only one exception, has lyrics that you can understand. Mm-hmm. And, that's a big thing for me. And the poetry, I'll tell you this, I would have notes if this were a polished thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I still have notes regardless. But
I can take it.
No. It's nothing. It's nothing bad. It's just that like there are certain songs where like there was one, I don't remember even which one it was, but I couldn't understand the words because of the mix. I couldn't understand what you were singing, and that was frustrating because so much of it I could. And so I would have asked you to keep an eye out on that. There is undeniably, your wife is a highlight of this album.
Yeah, she's so good.
Is good, and it makes you look bad.
That's okay. That's absolutely okay. This is fundamentally a songwriting project that has performance as an aspect to it. But this is like, there are times when I listen to it and I'm like, for any of you who have not heard this, I'm fine, right? Like I'm fine, I'm competent, but I'm not. I'm nothing special as a vocalist. My wife,
which doesn't have to be an end,
right?
Look at Bob Dylan, and he's not a vocalist at all, but like, people still love the sound of his voice, and I think you do lack the a character. Maybe for your voice, right? Yeah. A specific character. But yeah, man, Amy is fantastic. Every time I heard her voice, it was joyful for me as an experience. And your blues song, which was Dirty Dog Blues, is that?
Dirty Dog Blues.
So you have first of all, I like this song a lot. I want it to be better. I want you to do a second pass at it because it's such an interesting song, a blues song from the perspective of a dog, and you sing a whole song's worth of stuff from the perspective of this dog, and then you introduce the second dog character as sung by Amy. And it was such a jarring, like, the song, not only is the song not done, but we're starting a whole new chapter. And I would have liked you to go introduce that dog earlier on, and have more of a, like, I love the contradictory, lyrics and how they're, essentially they're rivals. And I think that that's a great story to tell. I just didn't get it soon enough. So, but yeah, there lots to enjoy about this album. A lot of the music is not my type of music, I'll say that, and I think that the lyrics, there's a lot of points where the lyrics needed another pass, but again, I understand you only had a week to do it. The music is good though. Like your guitar work and your music creation, your music writing is very impressive to me. I found myself dancing to what I guess was the Loop Browser song.
Yeah, Loop Browser, yeah.
I was just bopping down the street walking Coco and kind of like dancing to the song. It just had a great beat and rhythm to it. So yeah, man, it's kind of, I would be more harsh on this song if it wasn't, and not because it's you, because I respect you too much to not be harsh on you.
Thank you.
But I would be more harsh if this was a studio album that was like a polished, like this took months or a year to make.
This is fundamentally one dude in a basement, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit of input from other people, but this is fundamentally one dude in a basement, and it it does sound like that. I feel like
I think it sounds better than that, to be honest.
Thank you. I would say it's just about as good as I could do, like without hiring somebody else to like sound engineer it or something like that.
And here's what I'll say. I think your competent is probably better than most of the world's best, right? So like I would put you at probably in the top 90 percentile in
well, thank you.
People making music in their basements.
Wow. That is that is going on the second edition of Outhouse. A quote from Travis: better than 90% of people making music in their basement. That is, and I'm not even joking right now. That's fantastic. What a adorable compliment.
I do wish you had not put these songs in order of creation.
It wasn't.
I do wish you had...
No, they're not
really?
in order of creation. This is my chosen playlist. How would you have configured it? No, this is because
I didn't like the first song. That's why the first song.
Oh, the
Our
punk
Lives?
song. Yeah, you don't like the.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, I guess I'm not a punk guy.
You must not be a punk guy. It's a trans rights anthem. So.
Okay. Yeah, I did notice.
Yeah.
Yep. I loved your messaging, a lot of it, and some of it was a little on the nose.
That's one of my least favorite things about my lyric writing is I cannot do like metaphor or analogy or like sort of coming at a subject from the side. I'm always like super duper on the nose, to the point where I feel like I should just lean into it and be like They Might Be Giants or something, and just be like right down the middle,
Yeah, maybe. I think you ride a line right now that's kind of an Uncanny Valley-esque, like of metaphor versus realism. And so I wish you would pick one or the other. But there's a song that you did, Learning is Fundamental, that has a really interesting hook, which is the things that we've learned, and we've talked about this before, the things that we've learned since we were kids, and how just humanity is continuously learning things. And it's an interesting song. It goes a little too far. Like you go like just one step past success. Like you're like, oh, I've got it. let's do more.
That
And,
might be
and
that
more
might
is-
be the pull quote right there. Actually, one step past success. That would be a good name for another album too.
There you go. So, in short, Matt, I definitely would recommend our listeners check this out. I think that it's worth listening to. Probably not my cup of tea as a whole, but there are definitely some gems in here that I would love to have you put on it. At the end of the year, you'll have a good 10 songs, I think, that will just be perfect for me.
Oh, nice.
And I'm not your audience because
Well,
I think
that's really
you are
sweet.
your audience.
Yeah.
And,
No,
and so-
unequivocally, this is definitely about amusing myself most of all. I did listen to the album in preparation for this, by the way, because I hadn't heard it in a few weeks. It's funny when you're working on these every week, you don't have the opportunity to go back and like listen to stuff you've done.
You can't
right?
savor anything.
You're just burning through plot, right?
Yeah. That's the same when you talk to actors who are in shows like in X-Files or Star Trek or whatever, and you're like, in episode 3, what do you think about the thing? And they're like, I don't remember.
I have no idea.
Are working so hard to memorize your lines that as soon as you are done with a scene, you just have to empty that from your brain, so that you have room for the next thing.
That's exactly it, and it's a furious pace. I do have a little bit of bad news for you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I've done five or six more songs since
You're quitting the project?
Since the release. I'm not quitting the project, but I am putting it on the shelf for a little bit. So I had intended to write while I was on vacation, and I got my guitar out a couple of times, and I realized that I'm really, now that I've done this, really being limited by my guitar playing, right? I've only been playing for a little over a year. So this January 1st, when I started this project, was basically the 1-year anniversary of me picking up the guitar and studying in a sort of systematic way. And I'm just not good enough yet to do the things that I want to be able to do. And so I've decided to set the project aside for a little bit. I'm not officially abandoning Panko Stankhole or anything, but I am abandoning the one song a week go thing. Because I feel like it's done what I wanted it to do, which is spark me to create. And right now, I'm no longer in a situation where it's like, I have to create. It's, I have to get more competence, right? I need to get, like an athlete would say, I need to get the reps in, right?
Hey, that's fine. I get it. And I think, as I said, just having created something like this is a pretty, it's like me making a movie. It's pretty impressive stuff.
Well,
so I'm very proud of you.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad you found things to enjoy about it. I am super duper proud of it. There's a couple of points in it that I'm like, ooh, I would have done that differently if I had it to do over again. But there's nothing on here that I'm embarrassed to have on here. And for like part of this is not leaving anything out, right? Like these are the first 13 weeks. And so to be able to put that out and say, no, this is all good. Like I'm okay with this being out there and being like my public face to the world. Yeah, I'm good. I'm happy.
You're right. The worst song on here was okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you. That's true. God, you are full of quotes today. That's fantastic. The worst song, that might be the pull quote for this episode of the podcast, by the way. The worst song on here was okay. That's fantastic. All right.
You're welcome. My favorite song, I will say, I do want to say my favorite song is Normal.
Oh, right.
Where Amy's saying. I think that's a beautiful song, and it's I love the story of it. It's got a great three act structure to it that is it's beautiful, and her singing is extraordinary. I think she could be a star if she wanted to.
She is really, really fantastic. I want you to know that she wrote that song. 80% of the lyrics she wrote in a single sit down session where we just like chugged through it. And then, there was a little bit of tweaking afterwards, but that was largely just like vomiting the words onto the page. It was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
It really I felt like privileged to be sitting there playing guitar for her while she was doing it. It was really cool. It was really
That's
cool.
great.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So I will say my score may feel a little harsh.
Oh, not at all.
If it were, I would give it a worse score probably if I didn't know that it was, a song a week type of thing, right?
Yeah,
and,
sure.
and I'm not giving you an extra point because it's you.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it an even 5.
Okay.
Which is it's a good middle of the road score for me. Yeah. But part of that is also that it's not for me. I think that this is not the kind of music that I generally respond to.
Yeah.
But I do want you to know how much I respect your achievement.
Well, thank you very much. This obviously is a 100 for me out of 10. No, it's I would say in terms of, yeah, I mean, I would say you're right. It needs to come down a little because it's not like fully produced, right? And there are definitely things that I would like. There are definitely things that I would have changed if it wasn't like time to put the song out, right?
Yeah.
I would. I think I'd give it a 7 for me, maybe an 8, 7.
That was my guess. I was going to
Yeah.
guess.
Oh, were you holding he was, ladies and gentlemen,
Yep.
he was holding his hands off screen and then he raised his, 7.
What
Yeah,
I
7.
would have rated it had I been you would have been 7.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
I'll take
if
that.
it was a Strangers album. Yeah. So excellent. Well done, my friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Well, what do you got for me for next week? I've been salivating, and people are asking me what I'm listening to each week.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I have you might actually know this because you were introduced to a lot of music by your mom, and this is of that era. Are you familiar with Gordon Lightfoot?
I have heard the name, as is so often my response when you ask that question.
Okay.
But I don't know that I am familiar with any of his music.
It is him. Yep.
Okay.
So Gordon Lightfoot died recently, but he was a folk rock artist in the late 60s and early 70s. He had a couple of really big hits. One of which is not on this playlist. There's a song that's very famous here in Wisconsin called "The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald." It's about
I know that song.
It's a shipwreck on Lake Superior, and so people reference it around here every once in a while.
Sure.
But his most famous song is called oh God, what is it called? Sundown. It's called Sundown. Sundown, you better take care. Really good. Anyways, I made a playlist for you. It is all songs off of a greatest hits compilation that was released in 74, I want to say. It's called the album is called Gord's Gold. It's like 22 tracks long. I did not give you the whole thing. I picked up my favorite songs from it. I front loaded it with the song Sundown and boy, gosh, I'm sorry. The other famous song is If You Could Read My Mind. It should now be in second place in your playlist. You might have to refresh or something. But that one was his first hit. Was not his biggest hit, but it was the song that sort of brought him to everyone's attention. Is that the
one they use on a cruise? If you could read my mind, I'm on a Sunday cruise. I don't know.
Nope, that's not it. But it's really good. It's all... he has a very distinctive vocal style, and if you don't like it, then you're not going to like this because it's all over this thing. But hopefully you can get over. He's got kind of it's a little bit of a delivery that takes some getting used to, but it's really good stuff. The other thing that I'd like you to note about this is there is almost no percussion on any of this. It's almost all guitar and bass.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually his first big tour was without a drummer at all.
Interesting.
Which is a very unusual choice. So anyways, what do you have for me?
Well, I have been directed to have you watch several movies over the last few weeks as I've been telling people about
Oh,
the
right.
podcast.
Yep.
And the one that everybody was like very effusive of. These guy was at a party and everybody was like, "You have to watch this one movie." I haven't seen, so I'm saving
Okay.
it for a very
Okay.
special episode.
Excellent.
But I need to ask you, have you seen Death Becomes Her?
Okay, so this is a yes and a no. It's a yes because I have definitely, like, it's been on the screen before when I was in the room.
Mm-hmm.
But that was in the mid 90s. Can I say no even though technically I have seen this movie? Because I would love to watch it again.
I think you can, because I want you to watch it again. It's one of those movies that I also saw when it came out in theaters. It stars Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn and Bruce Willis, and it's directed by Robert Zemeckis, who gave us everything from Back to the Future to Castaway to Roger Rabbit, and he is one of my favorite directors because of his variety.
Yeah.
Like, he does a bunch of different stuff, and so I did a Robert Zemeckis playlist once for like a marathon for Christmas, and this was one of the movies on it, and it stood up for me so surprisingly.
Yeah.
Like, I was shocked by how much I loved it, from the difference, from being a teenager watching it and being like a 30-year-old or 35 or now in our 40s watching it.
I remember liking it, but I don't remember like any of the plot. I don't even remember if I saw it all the way through. Right.
All right.
So
well,
I would
see it all the way through now.
Yeah.
It's an older movie. It's from probably the either very late 80s or maybe very early 90s.
I feel like it's early 90s, but yeah.
I feel like it's 90 or 91 or something like that.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It doesn't matter for now. Let's just put it on the assignment list, and we'll have you watch it, and we'll talk about it next week. It's a lighthearted romp.
Oh,
so
you know me and lighthearted romps. It's already a 6 just from the fact that it's like it can only go up from there for sure.
Great. All right, well, I'm excited to have you watch Death Becomes Her. What Lies Beneath is another one of Robert Zemeckis' movies, which is on my list actually because it's a really good Hitchcockian thriller. But it's crazy how different movies Zemeckis does. But anyway, we'll explore his oeuvre as we go.
So you're gonna expose Robert Zemeckis to me? Is that?
I will expose you to him.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Travis, for exposing yourself to me this week. I'm glad we're back together.
Me too. And thank you for exposing yourself to a degree unheard of to this point. And
thank you.
Yeah, you completely exposed yourself to me, which I appreciate. Oh, wait, before we go, hey, listener, what... We need to be better at this. What did you think of today's selections? Did you agree with me on Joker's perfect rating, or did you think more along Matt's lines? Let us know on our Facebook page. Just search for Exposing Ourselves Podcast, or email us at exposingourselvespodcast@gmail.com, and we'll read your comment on the air. All right. Thanks so much. That's all I want. Oh, and leave us a review wherever you happen to be listening to podcasts. That really helps. Like, truly. Like, really.
Awesome.
Okay. Now, goodbye.
Goodbye.